Eleanor sat on her old wooden porch, the paint peeling from years of harsh summers and cold winters. She cradled a mug of steaming chamomile tea between her weathered hands, feeling the warmth seep into her bones. As she watched the sun slip below the horizon, painting the sky with soft strokes of orange and lavender, she let out a deep, peaceful sigh. At 72, Eleanor's days stretched quietly before her like an empty canvas. Her husband, Tom, had passed away 5 years earlier, a gentle soul who had been her partner in every small adventure. Her 2 children had long since built lives of their own on opposite coasts, busy with careers and raising families. Friends who used to fill her kitchen with laughter had moved away or drifted off with time. Neighbors often worried about her, stopping by occasionally with casseroles or offers to drive her to church. They would ask, "Don't you get lonely, Eleanor? Don't you miss having company?" She would smile politely, pat their hands, and say, "Oh, I'm all right, dear." Truly. But deep inside, she felt something they didn't understand. Eleanor had discovered a quiet strength in her solitude. Instead of feeling abandoned, she felt liberated. She no longer needed to keep up with social calendars, endless phone calls, or the polite small talk that always left her feeling a little empty. She rose each morning at her own pace, brewed her tea slowly, and read the same book for the 3rd time just because she loved the story. She found joy in the simple symphony of life around her, the distant sound of children laughing in the street, the creak of her rocking chair, the gentle chirping of sparrows perched on her railing. In those moments, Eleanor realized she had become her own best friend. The world urged her to stay connected, to keep gathering people around her, but she had chosen a different path, one of inner peace, quiet observation, and self-discovery. And as the stars began to prick the sky, she felt more complete than she ever had before. One chilly morning in early spring, Eleanor stepped onto her porch, wrapping her shawl tighter around her shoulders. She was about to water her potted daisies when a faint, trembling sound caught her attention, a tiny, desperate mew. She looked down and saw a small gray kitten huddled in the corner of the porch. Its fur was tangled and dirty, and its eyes were wide with fear and hunger. The kitten shivered violently, its little body barely strong enough to stand. Eleanor's heart clenched in an instant. Without thinking twice, she knelt down slowly so she wouldn't frighten it further. "Oh, you poor thing," she whispered, her voice trembling with warmth. Gently, she reached out her hand. The kitten hesitated, then took a tiny, shaky step forward, finally collapsing into her palm. She carefully wrapped the kitten in her old floral quilt and carried it inside as if it were a newborn baby. She heated up some milk and poured it into a shallow dish. Watching the kitten lap it up hungrily, Eleanor felt a spark of purpose ignite inside her. She named him Oliver. Over the next few days, her house transformed into a safe haven, a small sanctuary filled with the soft sounds of purring and playful footsteps. Oliver explored every corner, his tiny paws tapping on the wooden floors, his bright eyes full of curiosity. For the first time in years, Eleanor found herself laughing out loud. She watched Oliver chase shadows in the hallway and curl up in her lap for long naps, his soft breathing syncing with her own. The world outside her windows felt distant and less important. Instead of feeling the weight of loneliness, she felt the lightness of unexpected companionship. She didn't have to call friends to feel needed or loved, Oliver's trust and affection were enough. Through caring for him, Eleanor discovered that even the smallest life could fill her days with joy and meaning. She realized that love didn't always come from a circle of friends, sometimes, it arrived on tiny paws and looked up at you with grateful, golden eyes. As spring turned into a warm, golden summer, Eleanor found her backyard calling to her in a way it hadn't for years. The garden had once been Tom's pride and joy, rows of tomatoes, fragrant herbs, and cheerful sunflowers dancing in the breeze. After he passed, the weeds had crept in slowly, and Eleanor simply let them, too lost in her grief to care. But now, with Oliver bounding happily around her ankles, she felt a new kind of energy rise within her. One morning, she picked up Tom's old gardening gloves, still hanging on the rusty nail in the shed, and slipped them on. The familiar smell of earth and sun-soaked leaves filled her senses, and she felt a comforting closeness to him. She began by pulling the stubborn weeds, feeling each tug loosen something tight inside her. She planted bright marigolds along the edges and rows of juicy tomatoes and crisp cucumbers in the middle. Oliver, never far behind, pounced on falling leaves and chased buzzing bees, adding life and laughter to each day. When the first tomatoes ripened, Eleanor carefully picked them, holding each one like a treasure. She started leaving baskets on her porch labeled, "Take what you need," and soon, neighbors would walk by with shy smiles, picking a few vegetables or flowers. Some left thank you notes, others knocked on her door just to say hello. One morning, the mail carrier, a young woman named Jenny, shyly handed Eleanor a jar of homemade jam in return for the tomatoes. Eleanor felt tears prick her eyes. This small exchange felt warmer than any crowded party she'd attended in her younger years. Through the garden, Eleanor discovered a quiet way to connect with her community without the noise of forced social gatherings. Each seed she planted was an act of hope, each flower a silent message of kindness. As she stood among the blooming sunflowers, with Oliver darting through the tall stems like a tiny tiger, she realized she wasn't isolated at all. She was rooted, growing, and in her own gentle way, deeply connected to every soul who passed by her gate. One evening, as a gentle summer breeze drifted through her garden, Eleanor settled into her favorite old rocking chair. Oliver curled up in her lap, his rhythmic purring blending with the soft rustle of leaves and the distant hum of crickets. Overhead, 1,000 stars blinked to life, scattering silver light across her garden. She looked around at the rows of thriving vegetables, the bursts of color from marigolds and sunflowers, and the soft glow of lanterns she had strung along the fence. The air smelled sweet and earthy, a gentle reminder of all the small acts of care she had poured into this space. As she stroked Oliver's fur, Eleanor felt a deep, quiet contentment wash over her. She thought of the years she had spent chasing after friendships, filling her calendar with endless lunch dates and gatherings, trying to keep loneliness at bay. It struck her now that much of that noise had been a distraction, a way to avoid sitting alone with her own thoughts, her own heart. Here, in the company of a kitten and a blooming garden, she finally realized something profound: she had always been enough. She didn't need a room full of people to validate her worth or a long list of friends to prove she was loved. She had herself, her tender hands, her nurturing spirit, her generous heart. She remembered how neighbors now waved more often, how Jenny dropped off fresh bread, how children left hand-drawn thank you notes for the flowers they took. These small gestures weren't about forced social obligations, they were genuine, organic connections born from simple kindness. Looking up at the starlit sky, Eleanor whispered, "I am enough." The words felt like a warm blanket wrapping around her soul. In that moment, she understood that independence wasn't about being alone, it was about discovering the endless love and strength waiting within. A gentle breeze brushed against her face, as if the universe itself was nodding in agreement. And there, beneath the vast sky, Eleanor felt not alone, but truly, beautifully whole.